All right, folks, what is up? It is time to get back to another episode of How to Make a Living as a Content Creator and Streamer. And today we're following up on the heels of the sponsorship episode with this video on pitching. Pitching is a complex topic, and if you plan on working with sponsors and you are young and hungry and want to grow your brand, you're going to be doing a lot of pitching. A lot of pitching. Did I mention a lot of pitching? Because most companies, this is going to be like being an actor going in for auditions. Most companies are going to say no, 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 no. In fact, most places you reach out to aren't even going to bother to give you a reply. So you're going to have to get really, really good at rebuffing no replies and rebuffing the silent treatment, as well as rebuffing people who tell you no and don't really give you a great reason for why. But it is part of the process if you're going to go out there and find sponsors and sponsorships. As a general rule, and again, this goes back to what I was talking about in the sponsorship video, it's not going to be worth your time to pitch to anybody until you've got at least a couple of years under your belt showing that you have a proven track record for regularly publishing good content that gets lots of views, and you need to be getting good views on your content. Follower count is important. It's not the only metric that people look at. Engagement numbers are far more important than the follower metric, but every company out there, especially if they're using a platform like Lurkit or Keymailer or something, they're going to have you plug your stats into those outlets, into those websites, and the software that those companies are running is going to let the companies access your Twitch and YouTube and etc. Data to be able to see not only the amount of people who are watching each video that you upload, but the amount of people you have watching your streams on all the different platforms and what kind of engagement you're getting on those streams and on those videos. And the engagement is the number one metric that companies are looking for. And I talked about this in that sponsorship video that someone with 1,000 people watching them live, but they've only got 10 people chatting, is worth way less than someone who has 100 people who are watching live, but 75 people are chatting, because it's a much, much, much higher percentage of active engagement. And that's what companies are looking for more than anything else. It is very important that you pay attention to numbers, but far more important than anything else is your ability to be good at negotiating and also making a good first impression. Because I'll be honest with you, the vast majority of deals that I've landed over the years have come from one on one conversations with people, not because of any specific statistic that I've shown. Um, Media kits are great, which we're going to talk about in this episode, but far more important than a media kit or your stats on Keymailer or anything else is the ability to meet face to face with people and get to know them on a personal level, have some sort of personal anecdote that you can share with them. And then when you do a follow up later on via email, you can refer back to that personal moment and be like, hey, I'm the guy who was here at this event. You remember that joke? Yeah, we laughed about it together. Hey, I was wondering if you had any, opportunities, blah, 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 blah. Don't worry, I'll work you through all of this. Um, the big thing is that understanding that most companies are not going to look at you until you've got, I would argue, at least in terms of realistic offers for cash, most companies are not going to be offering you significant cash offers until you hit 100,000 followers. And that's going to take several years unless you're extremely lucky. And I mean like 1% lucky. Which doesn't happen to more than like 1% of people. So expect to need to put in a bit of a grind before you get to the point where you're able to start pitching and successfully landing paid gigs. However, what you can be getting from very early on, and I'm talking from the time you've got 5, 10,000 followers, if you've been regularly publishing content for 6 months to a year, you can get free copies of games. Not from everywhere, but you can, generally speaking, get lots of free copies of games. Matter of fact, if you put your email out there in public, you're going to get a lot of offers for free games, 99% of which are absolute dog shit. But it does allow you to sort of wade through the slush pile and find the games that are going to resonate with you and your brand. Um, you will find diamonds in the rough. For example, Robinhood Sherwood Builders was a diamond in the rough for me. That was something that they pitched it to me, and I happened to catch it in my slush pile in my email, and I took a look at it and I went, I love Robinhood. The game looks kind of janky, but I'll give it a shot. It's a free key. What's it? It's I take an hour, of my time. I do a first impressions video, and then I move on. I did the first impressions video. That first impressions video did lots of traffic, and I went, oh shit, I should play some more of this game. So I did play some more of it. I created some guides. I created some additional content. Lo and behold, I ended up making some content around that game that made several $1,000s. In terms of ad revenue and memberships and everything else off of something that I got for free and I didn't have to pitch for. It was just offered to me. So that would be tip number one in terms of pitching. Make sure your email is in a readily available and visible spot on all of your social media platforms. Have your email public. If you want to use a separate email that's just for the public, do that, but make sure you have a public facing email so that people know you are available for opportunities, so that they have a way of reaching out to you, because fielding offers is going to help you build up the early parts of your resume. And this is what's very important. In terms of creating your media kit, which you are going to need if you're going to be doing any sort of active pitching, um, your media kit is going to be filled with all of those little things you've done for all those other companies. Now, hooking yourself up to Keymailer and Lurkit is a little bit different, because the way those websites work is you log in, you create a profile, you put all your information in there, you link your YouTube, you link your Twitter, you link your Twitch, you link your Instagram, you link your TikTok, and those stats become publicly available to anyone who's looking. And then what you'll do is you'll get offers periodically, or there will be public offers, and you can very quickly go and see, are your numbers high enough to apply for these offers? And if they are, you just click the apply button, and then you wait to hear back. Sometimes you will, sometimes you won't. Um, that's a very easy way to do it through Keymailer and Lurkit. But what about you randomly pitching to companies, trying to get in the door with them? Like, let's say, you love, I don't know, Square Enix as a company, and you want to try to do a campaign with Square Enix. Well, you're going to need to have an in. So the first thing you're going to need is your media kit. I'm not going to go into media kits too much in this, because you can literally just Google a media kit and figure out how to make one. But what it's going to have, it's going to have a headshot of you, and it's going to have your basic portfolio. It's going to say, I've got, here's your headshot. I've got this many followers here, 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 and I've worked with these 15 companies. That's your media kit. That's really all it is. And the earliest days of this is going to be the top part of your people I've worked with is going to be full of all of those free keys that you've been given. But it doesn't necessarily have to say anything other than worked with these companies, because you're just showing that you've worked with these companies and you've used their keys to do what you were supposed to do, which is provide coverage for the games that you were offered those free keys to do. Um, Always very, very important, by the way, when you're doing, and I'll talk about this in another video, but disclosure is very, very important. So if you have been given a key to play a game, it needs to be in the description of the video, it needs to be in the title of the video, and it should be somewhere on the thumbnail that it's very evident and obvious to anyone watching that you were given a key by the company. First and foremost, because disclosure is important from a federal perspective if you're operating out of the United States, but also because it's bragging rights that you get a free key from certain companies. It might not matter when it's small indie companies, but when you start to rack up 5 or 10 different credits, that is going to get you into the door in bigger places. And then the bigger the credits, you can start adding those big credits to the list and replacing some of the old credits, and eventually you'll work your way up to the point where you only have big credits on your media kit. And eventually, once you've put in enough time, and this will be 5+ years, usually speaking, once you've put in 5 years or more, you don't even really have to use a media kit anymore, and you very rarely have to pitch, because most of the work you're going to be getting is through referrals and word of mouth. And you'll have a working reputation with a lot of these companies, and they will come to you and say, hey, we loved the work you did on this previous game. We got a new game coming out. Are you interested? And you say yes or no. Here's my price, and so on and so forth. Media kit is important. Um, in terms of pitching, like I said, the first place you could start is Lurkit, Keymailer. Those two places are great places to start. Make sure you have your email publicly available out there so that people can easily find you. After that is consider attending conferences. As someone who had a public speaking career, I cannot stress the value of conferences enough. I just can't stress enough how big of an impact conferences had on my careers leading up to this. Because being able to go to a conference and rub shoulders with all of the people who you want to work with, to be able to meet them face to face and be able to have those personal connections with them, to share a beer with them, to do a photo op, to have a joke, loved this, played this game, oh, you like that game too. Those sort of opportunities allow you to have a personal connection with those people. You can get your business card directly in their hand. You can get their business card directly in your hand. And then as soon as you get home from the conference, whether it's a week after or 2 weeks after, you follow up that and say, hey, I don't know if you remember me. We just met at the conference last week. Um, I'm the guy who's, we shared this moment. I was wondering if you guys were looking at needing any content creators for this game, and you could point out one of the games they have coming out. I like to do this thing, and here's the thing that I do. I'd be interested to see if you guys have a budget for that, or if maybe we could do some sort of a free key or something, whatever it is that you're pitching them on. Um, but you do that follow up within the first week or two after you met them at the conference, so that it's fresh in their mind and they actually remember you, because they're going to meet hundreds, if not, thousands of people at a conference, and you have to do something that stands out. So that personal connection is always going to be a big thing. Because here's the thing, like I get hit these days. I mean, it depends on the month, but generally speaking, I'll get 50 to 100 people every single month who try to sell me on their services as like a thumbnail artist or like a video editor or something. I've had like 150, couple hundred during the holidays, but right now it's like 50 to 100 a month. I don't need those people's services, but that's what they're doing is they're shotgun emailing me and probably shotgun emailing a whole bunch of other people trying to, drum up work. Been there, done that. That's pitching. And I, like the developers you're going to be discussing, am ignoring 99.9% of those emails because those people don't have anything that I'm looking for and they're not pitching me on anything unique. They're just showing me a link and telling me that here's 5 of my examples. I'd love to work for you. Here's what I charge. Let me know if you need anything done. And I don't. The reality is when it comes to pitching is you have to be doing something that is unique to help you stand out from the rest of the people who are also pitching. Because if the only thing you have going for you is the numbers, I have X amount of followers and Y amount of engagement, that's not very exciting. Like, that can be valuable to a company from the perspective of, well, we can anticipate that he's going to help us sell 100 copies of the game, but that's not as valuable to companies as building a relationship with creators. Um, and one of the best examples I can give you of this is when Chris and I went and worked in Costa Brava. Um, the guy who was managing the Costa Brava tourism office at that time, Jama, had just like 2 years in a row, Costa Brava had won like best tourist destination in the world. And the year after Chris and I were there, they won the European Marketing Award for the best marketing campaign, and they beat out like Ryanair and these other companies that were spending, hundreds of millions of dollars on marketing campaigns, and they did it by working with small content creators who had less than 100,000 followers on social media, but they had a personal connection with all of these content creators, and they worked with so many personal connections that they were able to create this massive network of influencers who were sharing each other's content all around the world on an international basis. And that got so much coverage that it beat out these campaigns that were spending hundreds of millions of dollars. And every company out there is looking to replicate that level of success with influencers. Influencer marketing is the number one type of marketing on the planet, bar none. It is pound for pound, dollar for dollar, euro for euro, the most powerful type of marketing that exists on the planet. And the reason for that is because No one trusts the faceless corporation. Like if McDonald's comes to me and says, "Try my new burger. It's amazing." I'm going to be like, "Bitch, of course you're trying to tell me your new burger is amazing. You're McDonald's. You trying to sell me burgers." But if my best friend comes to me and tells me, "Dude, that new burger McDonald's got, it's legit." I'm going to go eat that fucking burger because my friend told me it's worth it. That is the value and the power of influencer marketing. And that goes beyond working with people just because they have high engagement and high numbers. Working with people and establishing a working relationship is key. So, what you want to make sure you do as you get into the pitching process is find a way to be unique and establish yourself in your uniqueness. And that needs to be your focal point because the numbers are important, but more important is what kind of a connection you can have with the people that you're pitching to. I'm going to tell another anecdotal story here in terms of pitching. Um, Reputation matters in this game, and you're going to hear the word no a lot. And when you do get to the point where you start to get successful at pitching and you are getting free keys, make sure to thank these companies for the free keys. Don't just do the job, do the job, say thank you, and then when you're done, go back to all of your videos and all the content you made, whether it's YouTube Shorts, TikTok Shorts, everything you created for the company. So here's the thing. One of the things I've been very good at over my career is over delivering. And this is how I've managed to get word of mouth referrals throughout my entire freelance career leading up to this. Um, Always, always, always over deliver. Always over deliver. So if someone gives you a free key, and all you're expected to do is create like one video in exchange for that key. Never just deliver one video. Deliver 5 videos, deliver 10 videos, deliver 5 long form videos, 2 streams, 10 shorts. Take all of those pieces of content that you've created, put it into a PDF. Send that PDF back to the point person and say, "Hey, thank you so much for that free key. Here's all the content I created around your game. Hope it helped. Let me know if you have any work in the future." Always follow up and always be grateful and always be thankful. Don't ever piss in your Cheerios. Always, always, always be grateful and be thankful to those companies for giving you something for free. Then, when you get to the point where you do get paid for something, remember that everybody starts small. Your first campaign, you're not going to be making thousands of dollars. Your first campaign is going to be you know, getting a company who says, "Hey, tell you what, we'll give you 200 bucks in exchange for an hour long stream or a 2 hour long stream, whatever it is." And you'll go, "Awesome, great, let's do it." A couple of things to pay attention to in terms of pitching. Quick commercial break, everyone, to celebrate and give thanks to all of these amazing people who keep me on the air full time. Really appreciate the support. All you got to do is join as a member. You get access to private videos. You can also do super thanks on any upload or super chats and stickers on any live stream or premiere you see. And beyond that, don't forget we're multi-streaming over on Twitch now, so you can support over there as well. Thanks so much to everybody. Let's get back to the video at hand. Don't forget, I probably need to make a separate video about contracts too. Never, ever, ever do anything that involves money unless you've gotten at least half of that money up front. The money needs to go. Traditionally, this is the best way to do it. The money needs to go into an escrow account that you can see, so that you can see the money has been put in there. But you should get 50% deposited to you before you ever do anything, and then the other 50% is immediately payable upon completion of whatever it is that you agreed to do, whether it's making a long form video or doing a 2 hour stream or something of that nature. But that money needs to be, half of that, at minimum, half of that needs to be delivered to you immediately. For something like a sponsored stream, 50 up front, 50 after, that's fine. But if you're doing something where you're going to do an actual campaign with the company where it's like, "Hey, I'm going to come in and I'm going to do a 10-part series on this game. We're going to do 10 long form videos. We're going to do 15 TikTok and Instagram shorts." On those types of deals, you do it in such a manner where when you pitch, you're going to be like, your initial pitch is always about, "Hey, I'd love to work with you. I've got this idea for a campaign. Do you guys have a budget? And if they respond back with, yeah, we do have a budget, this is when you're going to need to have basically have multiple options available for them to choose from. You give them a very expensive option, which is all the bells and whistles, and then you give them a very cheap option, which is scaled down. So what this might look like is, I'll tell you what, I'll do 5 videos for $500. 5 long form videos, 10 minutes long on YouTube, guides, discussions, first impressions, whatever. I'll do 5 videos for $500. That's the cheap version. The middle of the road version is I'll do, um, 5, streams for $1,000, and then you hit them with the big one and it says, or we can go all out, and I'll do 5 streams, 5 videos, and 20 TikTok shorts and Instagram reels for $5,000. That's a generic, off the top of my head, BS thing without knowing anything else. But you're giving them a $500 option, a $1,000 option, and a $5,000 option, and they can choose from there. Um, on those types of deals where you're doing big things, um, you need to get half up front, 25% upon a milestone. So you agree that's like, okay, I get 50% before I start, then I get 20%, after I've delivered, like, on the short one, if it's 5 videos, after I've delivered 3 of the videos, you owe me another 25%. And then once you get that other 25%, you produce the final 2 videos, and then you get the last 25%. But you need to have some sort of a milestone payment so that you're getting paid along the way. And if you don't see that second paycheck, you just stop production of whatever you're doing, which will be rare, but it might happen from time to time. You never know. Anyway, going back to pitching, when you're initially pitching any company on anything, never, ever, 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 ever talk numbers right up front. Never. What you pitch is, hey, I'm so and so. I don't remember if we talked over here. That's assuming you've talked to them. We talked recently at that event. I was wondering if you guys needed any, content around this game or any streams or anything like this. I'd be curious, if you guys have a marketing budget for sponsored streams, or if you're doing any sort of key giveaways or anything like that, and just see what they have available. Because 9 times out of 10, at the very least, you're going to get a free key. There's nothing wrong with getting a free key. That's $50, $60, $80 that you saved. And especially when you're first getting started out, if you don't have a big budget, you know. Um, and then if they respond back, well, yeah, pitch us some numbers. Let us know what you got in mind. And that's when you can come back with your budgetary stuff. But never pitch numbers right out of the gate. You always need to be saving that for later. Like, it's etiquette, Establish a conversation, a little bit of foreplay. Don't go straight for the penetration of the numbers, man. Like, you got to back it up a bit. Um, Conferences are good. Conferences are expensive, is the thing. Um, so this goes back to, I don't think anybody should be pitching, in my opinion. This is just my opinion. I don't think anybody should be pitching before they've got 25,000 followers. You should really wait until you've got 50,000 followers to be doing pitching for any sort of paid campaigns. But you could definitely be pitching for free keys. That between pitching for free keys, having yourself on Lurkit and Keymailer, and the games you get for free on Steam and Epic Games and GOG Games, and having your email out there public, you'll be getting offers for 100, 150, 200 games a month. You'll be swimming in free games to play. And once you've got up around, I would say, 50,000, you could start pitching for cash offers, but they're not going to be big cash offers. Again, you're not going to see big cash offers for thousands of dollars until you break that 100,000 territory. Again, there are exceptions to that rule, but this is based on my background. And for those of you who don't know or have forgotten, my background before this, I spent 20 years freelancing, and Chris and I have worked around the world on some of the biggest travel campaigns out there. And before we got to that point, and I've talked about this in previous episodes, but if you've missed those episodes, I have pitched tens of thousands of projects over the years, over the course of like 20 years, right? Um, and out of those, I've landed thousands of projects. and I've worked on some really cool stuff. But there was a lot of pitching. And then with the game studios and getting investors on board, there's even more pitching to get investors on board, and there's more pitching if you want to try to work with game publishers to publish your game. So this goes back to I started pitching before we had the internet, when it was literally open up a phone book, scan the yellow pages, and start calling people and doing cold calls straight out of the phone book with my construction company because I was trying to land work. I was in my early 20s. I started when I was 20 years old. Um, and the internet was in its infancy, and I was literally open up the phone book and I would go and I would call every general contractor, every carpet shop, and I would call them and see if they had work. And regardless of what they said, I would then go to their physical location the next week with business cards and be like, hey, I called last week and wanted to know if you guys needed any extra work. Just wanted to drop on by, say hi, hope things are going well. Maybe bring a box of donuts. But you come in swinging big, box of donuts in your hands, some business cards. Just wanted to drop these off, say thanks for hearing my phone call the other day. Again, if you guys have any work, here's my business card. And now you've established that you're the dude who brought donuts. Not only did you make a phone call like every other schmuck, but you brought donuts. Now you're the cool guy. And if you still haven't heard back in another couple of weeks, then you figure out what project those guys working on, and then you go to the job trailers and you roll on up and say, hey guys, how's it going? And you bring another box of donuts. And you're like, hey guys, I know you guys like the donuts I brought last time, and I brought some more this time. I don't know if you guys need any extra work this weekend. If you guys are doing remodels in your homes, always be selling. This goes back to what is the name of that movie where Ben Affleck gives that speech? Oh man, it's Vin Diesel and oh, they say they sell the shares. It's the I can't remember the name of it, but yeah, always be selling, always be closing. Like you have to have that mentality. Um, always be pitching all the time if you want to land cool projects. Um, it's really hard to pitch game studios blind. So like going to Ubisoft or um, even going directly to the developers, because most of the time, and this I'll give you a good example of this. Recently, Hell is Us launched a demo, right? And I went and played that demo, and I did a first impressions video of that demo. And I think I streamed it. I may have streamed it and then did a first impressions. One or the other. I know I streamed it. We had fun with it. It was a lot of fun. Can't wait for that game. Going to be playing that in September. And the developer reached out and said, hey, their PR team, their communications team, reached out and said, "Hey, we'd love to know if we can use um, some clips from your footage to put together a reaction reel of different content creators and streamers playing our game." And I said, "Absolutely," with the caveat that you guys, at the very least, let me know when you're getting around to the paid campaigns, and let me know if there's any free keys available, or if you guys got a budget together for any sort of um, paid opportunities. And his response back was, that's awesome. We don't actually manage any of that stuff because that's our publisher. So here's the email you need to get in touch with for the publisher, and contact them and let them know, if you're interested. And they'll get back to you if they're doing any sort of paid campaigns. So in a lot of cases, what you'll find is that developers aren't the ones handling the the actual press and the marketing for the game. It's going to be on the publisher's end. And getting through to a publisher is going to be next to impossible if the only contact point you have is like the general email. This is why going to conferences is such a big deal if you're going to be in the process of actively pitching, because getting that personal connection and getting the business card of a human being who works in the marketing department is so fucking valuable. Because you're no longer being shuffled through the general slush pile email that gets probably 5,000, 10,000 emails per day. Now you're going to be sending an email directly to a person who's probably only getting 100, maybe 150 per day, and that's much easier to get seen that way. So the value of conferences cannot be overstated. However, again, conferences can be expensive, and there's a lot of conferences to go to. So you sort of have to, start close to where you live, and then go from there. But this also goes back to pitching once again, because if you can get um, a free ride to one of those conferences because you pitched your services as a freelance photographer or whatever. Um, that's really hard to do, by the way. Um, but that's one way to ease that burden a little bit. But for like 99% of people, you're going to have to pay to get into conferences. And conferences are generally going to be a few $100s for the tickets, but then it's the cost of airfare and hotels while you're there. Um, and that can get expensive, but it is all tax deductible. So that's one thing that's nice about that. But I mean, I would say you could argue that you're probably going to spend a minimum of about $3,000 every time you go to a conference, unless it's really close to where you live. Um, 3 days, let's say $300 for the tickets, $300 for food. Across those days, I mean, $100 a day for food is pretty reasonable. I mean, you could totally budget it and live off of like peanut butter and jelly sandwiches if you wanted to, but it's a good idea to budget, 300 bucks for your food, 300 bucks for your ticket. Your hotels are probably going to be these days, especially if you're trying to get something downtown near where the conference is. You're going to be looking at $250, $300 a night for the hotel. You need 3 nights of hotels or 2 nights of hotels. Um, shit adds up quickly, and then your airfare on top of that. I mean, $3,000 is a pretty good minimum to shoot for if you're doing conferences that are within, a 3 to 5 state area of where you live. International, you're going to spend a lot more, and generally speaking, international conferences aren't worth going to, mostly because you're going to be looking at more of like a 5,000 plus expense because of the cost of international airfare. So stick close to home if you can. But I mean, if you're just looking at like the North American market, you've got PAX East, PAX West, the GDC. Um, um, there's TwitchCon, multiple TwitchCons. I mean, there's a lot of conferences you could look at in terms of places where there are going to be lots of games publishers and marketing teams. And if there are any games that you're even remotely interested in or companies that you're interested in working with, you need to go to those conferences. You need to stand in line. You need to make yourself known, shake some hands, rub some shoulders. If there is going to be an event, this is the other thing to think about when you go into conferences too, in terms of pitching. Um, when you go to a conference, you need to be prepared to not sleep for 3 days. You're not going to sleep. You're going to drink a boatload of coffee. You're not going to get drunk. You're not going to party. You're going to stay caffeinated, and you're going to have a notebook in one hand and your best smile on your face, and it's all about meeting people, trading business cards, and giving out your media kit and getting to know people. That's it. That's the only reason you're going to the conference. It's not to play the demos of the games, because you can play the demos for the games at home in your home office. You can go get the demo off of Steam. Like, you don't need to go to a conference to play a demo. You're going to the conferences to rub shoulders with people and get those contacts so that you then have somebody to follow up with and pitch to. Um, Now, in terms of, once you break that 100,000 follower barrier and you're able to start leveraging the power of your own brand. And it does take a few years to get to the point, unless you're extremely lucky, which I said earlier. Once you have the power of your own brand behind you, you can start actually swinging for the fences and coming in and being, saying things like, hey, you know, I want to make, I want $1,000 an hour. I want $2,000 an hour. I want $5,000 an hour. It sort of starts to depend on the power and the leverage that you have. Maybe you don't want to just get paid. Maybe you want to trade them for voiceover work in an upcoming game they've got in development. Maybe you want to trade your time for a collector's edition and some swag. There are lots of different things you could pitch for beyond just straight up, cash. And those are things to think about as you start to get bigger. But pitching is a very complex thing. You can start it, like I said, to the TLDR version is you can start pitching as early as, I would wait till you're around 25,000 strong, because honestly, between having your email out in public and being signed up to Steam, GOG, and Epic Game Stores, And also, if you have like a running Xbox Game Pass subscription or a PS Plus subscription, you'll be getting so many free games every single month to play. Um, you know, but the difference is that once you can start getting those free keys to put the sponsored, to get the free key tag on your YouTube channel, that starts to add up. And once you've got, I would argue, once you've got half a dozen of those under your belt, you can start pursuing bigger opportunities and see if you can't start making some money for your time. But you won't get paid the big bucks at first. It'll be a few $100s per video to start with. Um, but I wouldn't even. This is a personal. This is one last thing I can tell you, and we could probably talk about this in a different video too, which is pricing. Um, know your worth as well. Don't be willing to do things for ridiculously cheap amounts of money. Like I've seen some things where someone's like, well, we want you to create a 10-minute video, we'll pay you $50, and it's like, no, no, I don't think so. Like, you need to be getting paid at least a couple $100, even if you're just getting going, for the time that it takes to put together a 10-minute video. I mean, even if it takes you 4 hours to do that, you make $200, you're making $50 an hour. That's respectable for somebody who's just getting going on the low end. And then when you get up to my level and you want to make $500 an hour or $1,000 an hour, or you get up to those other guys who are way higher than me who are making $10,000 an hour, it's all scalable, and it all just depends on where you want to go with your brand. So hopefully that has answered a bunch of questions regarding pitching. I hope you found it valuable. If you did, like, subscribe, hit the bell icon so you never miss an update. Daily streams at 4:30 a.m. Central on YouTube and Twitch. And for other episodes in the series, check down below and stay tuned for more.